Hey, and welcome to the Dad's Disneyplus Extra Volume 2. We are back talking about the Week 6 things that have come to Disneyplus. Really excited about all the different things that they have going on this week. We're going to be hitting some of our regulars. We'll definitely be hitting The Mandalorian. We'll be finishing up the Imagineering story because it finishes up this week, so there'll be all 6 episodes out on there. We're going to be doing High School Musical, the series. We're going to be covering that too, and we're going to be hitting the new Forky short. Welcome to the Dad's Disneyplus Extra Volume 2. First up, we're going to be covering The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian needed to go in for repairs for a spaceship, and he ended up running into a first-time bounty hunter who decided he was going to take him on. Or at least the first-time bounty hunter said he wanted the help from the Mandalorian to be able to get his first capture so that he could get into the guild of bounty hunters. Of course, everything goes awry because when you're dealing with people of questionable morality, they always decide whether or not to follow through on things. And of course, then the person who's actually had the bounty on their head can manipulate someone into thinking that maybe they should go in a different direction for their own benefit. Of course, it doesn't end up in the praise benefit, but it doesn't end up in the first-time bounty hunter's benefit either, because obviously this is The Mandalorian. This week, for part 6 of the series, The Mandalorian is out there working with a bunch of people that he worked with way in the past. Now, the thing about The Mandalorian is obviously we do not know a whole lot about his past. In some of the first episodes, we had flashbacks to him, what happened to him as a child, how he'd been kind of hidden away by his parents, and then ultimately we know that he was taken in by the Mandalorians, then became part of this tradition, aside from being a bounty hunter. This week, he decides to meet one of his old crew, which he used to be when he first became a Mandalorian. Which, of course, this way we get some backstory. He meets up with one of his fellow travelers, played by Mark Boone Jr. of Memento and Batman Begins fame. Plays kind of a sketchy leader of a crew of criminals that the Mandalorian decides he needs to team up with. Absolutely interesting brand of criminals. So we get kind of this crime caper. So you get the setup, and he meets everyone in there. And one of the more notable people he meets on there is Natalia Tena of Harry Potter fans. For those of you who don't remember, she would have been Nymphadora Tonks. Of course, she also played in Game of Thrones, one of my favorite series, helping the younger Stark kids escape the clutches of Theon and eventually Ramsay, but then she ends up with Ramsay at the end, and unfortunately, if you get mixed up with Ramsay, you mostly die until he dies. Anyway, so she plays what appears to be a former love interest of the Mandalorian, and she claims to have a lot of knowledge about who he is, which is very possible. Ultimately, it's going to be very interesting to see where you go with him, because what she intimates is that his earlier self actually loved and appreciated violence. That when they asked him what he was gaining from the crew earlier, he evidently said target practice. So he must have liked the killing and the death and the things like that. Something appealed to him about that. And obviously something is changing in him. Anyway, so he gets with the crew, and the crew goes on a little space trek to do a job. Leading the team is Bill Burr, who's a comedian in his own right, and then Clancy Brown of Shawshank Redemption. For those of you who know me and know that I love Shawshank Redemption, he plays the big red dude who is going to beat up people and take names all the way along the way. What's interesting, obviously, is then they end up having to come together and they do this job. Things go south, because things always go south with jobs. And other than Ocean's 11, when you have a criminal enterprise, mostly it comes to people being out for themselves. It's very interesting that at the very beginning that the character that the Mandalorian knows and likes and made contact with said that there's no questions asked. And so when nobody but the person that he needed to save and the Mandalorian come back, he says, no questions asked. Which is interesting, because then there's a little tidbit at the end, because these people could pop up later on, possibly. However, his friend, not so much. I think that it definitely was an interesting, fun kind of little crime caper. They go in there, and it's interesting as things go south. The really unique... I'll have to talk about the end, because when it gets to the end, there's a real unique, almost twist on it, because it starts off as a crime caper, but it kind of turns into a horror picture, which is weird and good at the same time. Also weird because it's Disneyplus, and to think of Disneyplus and horror is just kind of oxymoronic. Anyway, so then that last shot where the Mandalorian is going after the last guy, and you get flashes of light. It's brilliant, and it reminisces of the Weeping Angels of Doctor Who, and he gets closer and then vanishes, and gets closer and vanishes. But the character doesn't see it. You as an audience see it. Totally awesome. And then, of course, the little thing at the end where things don't turn out well for him and his friend. But I think there's a little snippet at the end that I'm really interested to see where they're going with this, because up to this point, how much do we know about the Baby Yoda character? For all we know, he talks goo goo gaga. We don't actually hear an actual conversation he's having with anyone. Obviously, we know that the original Yoda can speak whatever the language is that they're speaking. Anyway, so they're speaking to one another. But this one doesn't seem to have spoken yet. However, at the very end, the Mandalorian has a very interesting suggestion, and that interesting suggestion is, I told you that this was a bad idea. So that means that Baby Yoda communicates with the Mandalorian? If he does, how does he communicate? Mental telepathy, or is he actually having a communication off stage that we aren't seeing, or is there some just kind of internal thing within himself that that he's attributing to the child that really isn't the child? Definitely interesting, and definitely interested to see where it's going. Definitely a curious episode. Lots of characters, lots of cameos, which, you know, with television, it's always fun to have a lot of different cameos of people that you're going to recognize. And so definitely check out The Mandalorian. We're actually going to go into Forky Asks a Question, which, as I told you, Forky asks a lot of questions. And the interesting thing about it is that this week I totally relate to Forky. I grew up with computers. You have to understand that my dad was all about computers growing up. But the one thing I saw my dad do at computers was type a lot and yell at the computer for whatever was going wrong. In this instance, Forky asks Trixie, who is the computer expert, what is computer? And she keeps telling him, not computer, a computer. And he goes, what is computer? And she's like, no, a computer. And so she tries to explain stuff to him, and he's just like, no. And he's like, I don't get it. And then she turns it on its head and says, okay, yes, that's all a computer is, me typing and yelling at the computer. And then Forky goes crazy and starts jumping on the computer keys and yelling and screaming, and then, of course, acting like it's some sort of catharsis, which me as a child, I would have wondered quite a bit about my dad, whether there was just some catharsis about him yelling at the computer. Anyway, so he's yelling at the computer, he is having a good time, and then the computer shuts down, and she loses everything on the hard drive, and she starts having a panic attack. Of course, that is the light bulb moment for Forky, which is like, okay, I see you doing all these things, and these are the things that I see on the outside, but shouldn't life be more? Shouldn't life be more about connecting with one another? which it should, obviously. And yet we're sitting here with our mobile devices all the time going, hey, we're talking to each other via mobile device. We're looking at our mobile device, not even looking to the person right across from us when we're supposed to be talking to them, or when we're actually talking to them. Somehow we act like this is the same thing as this. Or we act like somehow that this is an equivalent way, or that there isn't something missing when we're staring at the computer screen. And the truth is, there is. I know that people like to think that there's nothing missing, but there is when we're doing things or when we're living via computer screen. And Forky points that out. But it doesn't matter to Trixie at that point, because he's destroyed her computer and she's going to be mad. Which I suppose that means that she got to do what she was always doing at the computer, yelling at it. Only now she's yelling at Forky. Ah well, poor Forky. Definitely check out, definitely an interesting commentary on things. For number 3 this week, Pixar in Real Life. Now, they had done an episode of Pixar in Real Life, and the real thing is I wasn't sure where they were going at it, and they don't do them very often. It's not like once a week with the other things that I've been able to count on once a week. This thing, it's just doing its second episode. However, it is pretty darn funny. Remember the scene in Dory where the octopus is then running around with the baby cart? Well, they've actually got an octopus to be able to run around in a baby cart. Okay, maybe not a real octopus, and maybe not a real cup with a real Dory inside it, but it looks kind of close, and it's kind of funny, and definitely it would have me going, huh, what's going on? Which is what a lot of people were doing. I don't think it's quite as amusing as the original episode. You should definitely check out the original episode, which gives all of the people in this park access to a board like the Inside Out characters. And then all of a sudden, when they start pressing buttons, people out in the park start behaving the way they press the keys. It's always interesting. You've got to know that they've got to be hearing something in an earpiece or something to know when to act mad, when to act happy, when to act fearful, when to act sad. Although they don't really touch fearful. I think that there's something missing there. They should have definitely... They even touched disgust, but somehow they left out the fear button, or at least they didn't use it. I think they really should have. However, this one is the Finding Dory with the octopus. Kind of interesting and playful, although I don't think it's quite as an adult thing. Definitely it's cute for the kids, though. And the kids, obviously, who were there just absolutely loved it. They were like, what the... There's an octopus running around in a baby stroller. So if you want to watch something cute, definitely check that out, Pixar in Real Life. And I'll be curious to see what other things they do for Pixar in Real Life. I'm looking forward to Cars. Number 4 is The Imagineering Story, which I obviously covered last week, and it is definitely one of my favorite shows. And unfortunately, it's coming to an end, because ultimately it was just a 6-part miniseries. It's kind of sad that it's only a 6-part miniseries, but really what you're going to do with it. I think that's why they have a concurrent show about people at Disney doing things, but it just doesn't have that. There's something interesting about history to me, and about the history of something, and that's why I liked The Imagineers, because it kind of went over the history of what it was. And now this last episode, you kind of take it the most recent things that they've been doing, which is obviously Star Wars Galaxy Quest, Pandora, the Guardians of the Galaxy Breakout Ride at Disney's California Adventure in California, and the Shanghai Disneyland that they did, which chalk up another theme park that I need to see. Oh my gosh, they have, that Tron ride. Dude, they need a Tron ride here. I'm sorry. I loved when they did the Tron theme overlay for California Adventure a few years back when my daughter was young. I know that Tron Legacy wasn't the best of things, but I love Tron. There's something magical to me about it. And if you can imagine, that was the first thing I watched on the Disney Channel a long time ago. So, chalk up another park that I need to see, but always interesting to see all the different things, all the different behind the scenes that they're doing. The theme park in Shanghai Disney, you're definitely going to want to check out, because that's just amazing. Everything that they did there. And of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm curious now, I really wanted to see go to the Star Wars land. But now, after seeing what they've been doing, all these things leading up to this, and seeing how those technologies now implement themselves in the Star Wars rides, oh my gosh. I know I was trying to be patient, but I'm going to get a heck of a lot less patient now. I just gotta go. Oh my gosh, it looks awesome. And of course the land, it just, it's living the dream, living Star Wars from my youth. Just totally awesome. So it's another great episode. It's sad it's coming to an end. I hope they have something to do with it in the future. Definitely, if they're not going to go with... I don't really like the Disney thing, but maybe if they went with Imagineering shorts, or like what they did with the Blue Sky Cellar at Disney's California Adventure, where they would talk about things they were going to be doing in the future, I think that would be the way to go with the Imagineers. It would be totally awesome. You could call it Blue Sky as the television series. I don't know. That's my opinion, but definitely you should check out, if you haven't started, you should check out the 6 parts of the Imagineering story. They're now all there, so you can binge watch it. Number 5, and the last of the shows we're going to cover this week, because I just couldn't get into Jeff Goldblum, is, of course, High School, the musical, the series. Yep, it's that long. Anyway, so this week we're dealing with a teacher who isn't exactly a teacher, because obviously she'd been less than honest on her application. So she ends up going before the school board. The students have to deal with the fallout of the fact that the teacher really isn't the teacher, and Ricky now has something going on the side. Obviously, this is the teen comedy that I talked to you about, is the teen drama that I talked to you about. So if your teens are into teen drama, then definitely come back for another week of this. So essentially, with part 6, Ricky is now having these conflicting emotional feelings, and he's just trying to work out the things that he has going on with Gina, played by Sophia Wiley of Andy Mack fame, which, if you check out my movie review, top 10 movies this week, you'll find another Andy Mack star in another interesting movie. So Ricky and Gina have something going on, and then there's EJ and Nene, who still have the fallout from the fact that Nene realizes that EJ has been manipulating things behind the scenes and getting into her phone and all those lovely little things that you'd never want of a boyfriend ever. He's trying to apologize to her, and she's dealing with that kind of fallout, realizing that she can't really trust him, and then she has unresolved feelings for Ricky. And then there's Ricky's dad, who has something going on with the musical teacher, except for the fact that she might not be there very long, and he had no clue that he had something going on with the musical teacher. But he does know that his son finds solace there, and so he really does appreciate her. So even when he finds out that she is the musical teacher, he decides that it's time to step up. And then, of course, when things seem to be going at their darkest, because this is a musical, they have to put on a musical number. And it goes wonderfully, and they basically say you shouldn't fire the teacher no matter what she did. I'm not sure this works in real life, but after all, this is a musical, and so, therefore, the school board member decides when can they get tickets, because that's the most important thing, not whether or not the teacher lied, manipulated, and somehow wound her way up at school. If they let her go on, I'm guessing they fire her a year later unless something really magical happens. Either way, it's another week of drama in the High School Musical department, with only really the one number, and showed a little dance prowess, a little more interesting in that aspect, but definitely not my favorite number. However, that's not true. There is one other side piece where Nene sees Ricky singing to Gina, but he's not really singing to her. He's just showing her a number that he thinks would be good for the musical, and she's wanting to listen because there's actually some sort of bonding there. The question is, what's going to happen? Is Nene going to get back with Ricky? Is Ricky going to get back with Nene? Or are we going to go in entirely different directions? I'm thinking just it's more drama because it's high school. What else is good in high school but drama? So that's my reviews this week on the Dad's Disneyplus Extra, covering all things Disneyplus and all the things that are going to be going on. I will be getting into movies that they're going to be releasing, although to be perfectly honest, most of them are just movies that they own that they haven't released yet. I will be more interested in seeing when the new TV shows come up, which I'm guessing they're going to be releasing hard on the ones that are going to be finishing up pretty soon. I'm guessing we'll get through these things by the end of the year, and maybe we'll see new things. I'm guessing March, because we're talking about springtime, so there'll be a whole different season and more new exciting things going on at Disneyplus. But we will be bringing it all to you here first, all the drama, all the crazy, and all the things that we enjoy about Disney, Disney Parks, Disney Channel, and everything else. It's the Dad's Disneyplus Extra. Stay tuned until next week.